Men think it's about money, looks, or having some flashy lifestyle. But I'm here to tell you, that's not what keeps a woman. That's not what makes her stay when things get tough or when she has options. There's one thing that separates the kind of man she dates from the kind she never forgets. And no, it's not what you're thinking. This isn't just about attraction. It's not about tricks or games. It's about doing one thing so well, so deeply, that it hits her mind, body, and soul. Do this right, and you'll live rent-free in her heart. Do this wrong, and you'll just be another lesson in her past. You see, women are intuitive. They remember how a man makes them feel. If you know how to tune into that, how to speak her language without even saying a word, you unlock a level most men never reach. That's why in this video, I'm breaking it down. No fluff, no ego, just the real reason women stay loyal, obsessed, and emotionally connected, even when they've walked away from everyone else. Most guys overlook this, and that's why they lose her. But if you stay with me till the end, you're going to understand something most men never do. And once you do, you'll never be forgotten. So if you're ready to stop being just another guy and start being the one she remembers, keep watching. You're about to learn something powerful. Let's break this down, because most men get it wrong, dangerously wrong. You think women leave over money? No. You think it's about looks? Wrong again. Arguments? Still missing the point. The real reason a woman walks away is far more profound. And if you don't understand it, you'll spend your life confused, wondering why the women you love keep slipping through your fingers. Here's the hard truth. Women don't leave because of surface level issues. They leave when they feel unseen, when they realize they've become an option in your life rather than your priority. And that distinction, that's everything. Think about it. A woman can tolerate financial struggle if she believes in the man beside her. She can overlook flaws in appearance if she feels cherished in ways that transcend the physical. She can weather storms of disagreement if, at the core, she knows you respect her. But what she cannot and will not tolerate is emotional neglect. Because emotional neglect isn't just an oversight, it's a betrayal of the deepest human need, to be valued. You see, men often operate under the illusion that provision equals love. They think if I work hard, if I pay the bills, if I put food on the table, then I've done my part. But here's the brutal reality. Provision without presence is abandonment. A paycheck doesn't replace a partnership. A roof over her head doesn't compensate for a void in her heart. And if you don't grasp that, you'll wake up one day to an empty bed and a hollow life, wondering where you went wrong. Women are not puzzles to be solved. They are mirrors. They reflect back to you what you put into the relationship. If she feels like an afterthought, she will withdraw. If she senses you take her for granted, she will detach. And once that detachment reaches a critical point, there's no grand argument, no dramatic finale, just a quiet, resolute exit. Because by then, she's already grieved the loss of you while you weren't paying attention. This isn't about manipulation or some game. It's about fundamental human psychology. Women, like all people, need to feel that they matter. Not just in what you say, but in what you do. Not just in the grand gestures, but in the daily, seemingly insignificant moments. Did you notice when she changed her hair? Did you remember the story she told you about her childhood fear? Did you put your phone down and really listen when she spoke about her day? These are the things that build emotional security. And without it, no amount of money, no level of attraction, no quantity of time together will ever be enough. So ask yourself, when she looks at you, does she see a man who truly sees her? Or does she see someone distracted, disengaged, too preoccupied with his own world to notice hers? Because if it's the latter, you're on borrowed time. And the tragedy is, by the time most men realize what's happening, it's already too late. But here's the good news. This is entirely within your control. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be wealthy. You just need to be present. Present fully, authentically present. Show up for her in the ways that matter. Make her feel like she's not just another part of your life, but the very heart of it. And if you do that, she won't just stay. She'll stand by you with a loyalty that defies logic, because you've given her something no one else can, the certainty that she is irreplaceable. So here's the choice you face. Will you be the man who wakes up too late, or the one who steps up now? The clock is ticking, and every moment you wait is a moment she's deciding whether you're worth hers. Let's cut through the noise and address what really matters: emotional security. This isn't some vague, touchy-feely concept. It's the bedrock of every lasting relationship. And if you don't understand it, you'll never understand why women stay or why they leave. Emotional security isn't about grand declarations or expensive gifts. It's about creating a space where she feels safe, not just physically, but psychologically. Safe to be vulnerable, safe to express her fears, safe to trust that you won't weaponize her weaknesses against her. That's the difference between a woman who tolerates you and a woman who adores you. Think about it this way. A woman's emotional world is vast. It's layered with intuition, perception, and an acute awareness of the unspoken. She doesn't just hear your words, she reads the gaps between them. She doesn't just see your actions, she interprets their meaning. And if those gaps are filled with inconsistency, indifference, or worse, contempt, her nervous system registers it long before her mind does. That's why emotional security isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Without it, she's in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, waiting for the other shoe to drop, and no one stays in that state forever. Here's where most men fail. They assume that because they're not actively hurting her, they're doing enough. But neutrality isn't safety. Silence isn't reassurance. If you're emotionally absent, you're leaving her to navigate the chaos of life alone. And that's a form of abandonment. Women don't need you to fix everything. They need you to be there. Not as a spectator, but as a participant. Not as a problem solver, but as a partner. When she's upset, do you dismiss her feelings with a shrug? Or do you lean in and say, "Tell me why this matters to you"? That's the difference between a man who drains her and a man who fuels her. And let's be clear, this isn't about coddling or surrendering your masculinity. It's about integrating strength with sensitivity. The strongest men aren't those who suppress emotion. They're the ones who master it. They create an environment where she knows without question that her heart is safe with them. That's what allows her to soften, to trust, to invest fully in the relationship. Because when a woman feels secure, she becomes more of herself, not less. She's more generous, more passionate, more loyal. But when she feels unsafe, she'll harden, she'll withhold, and eventually she'll leave. The irony is that men often mistake emotional labor for weakness. They think, why should I have to reassure her? Why should I have to validate her? But here's the truth. Emotional labor is the work of love. It's what separates a transactional relationship from a transformative one. And if you're not willing to do that work, you're not ready for a real relationship. You're just playing house. So how do you build emotional security? It starts with consistency. Not perfection, but predictability. She needs to know that your mood won't swing wildly from one extreme to another, that your words and actions align, that when you say you'll do something, you follow through. It's the small, daily acts of reliability that add up to trust. It's the way you handle conflict, not avoiding it, but navigating it with respect. It's the way you acknowledge her feelings, even when you don't fully understand them. I see this is important to you. Help me get it. Those 7 words can save a relationship. But here's the critical part. Emotional security isn't something you build once and forget. It's a living thing. It requires maintenance. It demands attention. And if you neglect it, it will erode slowly, silently, until one day she's gone. and you'll be left scratching your head wondering what happened. The choice is yours. You can be the man who dismisses this as overthinking it, or you can be the man who recognizes that emotional security is the ultimate competitive advantage, not just in love, but in life. Because the ability to make another person feel safe, that's power, real power. And the man who wields it wisely doesn't just keep his woman, he earns her devotion. So ask yourself, when she's with you, does she feel like she's standing on solid ground? Or is she always bracing for the next tremor? The answer will determine everything. Consider this carefully. A woman doesn't stay with a man because he's perfect. She stays because he makes her soul feel at home. That phrase, feel at home, carries more weight than you might realize. It's not about comfort in the lazy sense, but about that profound sense of belonging, where she can exhale completely, where every guarded part of her can finally relax. This is what transforms a relationship from temporary to permanent, from conditional to unshakable. When you create this for a woman, you become more than her partner. You become her sanctuary. And that kind of bond doesn't break easily. What does it mean to make someone's soul feel at home? It isn't just a physical space. It's an emotional landscape where she feels known at the deepest level, not just recognized, but truly seen. Not just heard, but deeply understood. This requires something most men never develop: the ability to perceive beyond words, to read the emotional subtext of what isn't being said. Women communicate in layers. The words are just the surface. The real meaning lives in the tone, the timing, the context. When you learn to navigate this, you gain access to parts of her no other man reaches. The tragedy is that most men never get this right because they're too focused on fixing rather than feeling. She shares a problem, and you jump to solutions when what she really needs is your presence in her emotional experience. This isn't about being passive. It's about understanding that connection precedes practical solutions. The paradox is that when she feels emotionally met first, she becomes far more receptive to your guidance afterward. But skip that first step, and all your solutions will fall on deaf ears, no matter how brilliant they are. Making her soul feel at home also means being a consistent emotional anchor in a chaotic world. Women today are under tremendous pressure to perform, to look perfect, to balance competing demands. When she's with you, she shouldn't have to perform. She should be able to take off the armor she wears all day. But this only happens when you've proven yourself trustworthy with her vulnerabilities. Every time you react with patience instead of frustration to her emotions, every time you respond with care to something she's sensitive about, you're adding another brick to that home her soul recognizes as safe. Here's where most men fail spectacularly. They want the benefits of deep connection without doing the emotional work required to build it. They want unwavering loyalty without providing the security that makes loyalty possible. They want passion without the emotional intimacy that fuels real passion. It doesn't work that way. The depth of a woman's devotion is directly proportional to the depth of emotional safety you create. This isn't speculation. It's observable psychological reality. The beautiful part? When you get this right, everything else becomes easier. Arguments lose their edge because there's a foundation of goodwill. Physical intimacy deepens because it's no longer just physical. It's the expression of that profound emotional connection. Challenges become shared rather than divisive because you're operating as a true unit. This is what transforms a good relationship into an extraordinary one. But here's the crucial point. This isn't about manipulating outcomes. It's about becoming the kind of man who naturally inspires this depth of connection. It starts with your own emotional maturity, your ability to regulate your emotions, to communicate clearly, to take responsibility for your own inner world. A woman can't feel at home in chaos. She can't relax into connection if she's constantly managing your moods or walking on eggshells. Your emotional stability creates the container where her love can flourish. So ask yourself, honestly, when she's with you, does she feel like she's come home? Not to a perfect house, but to that irreplaceable sense of being fully accepted. Not in spite of her complexities, but because of them. That's the difference between a woman who stays and a woman who merely remains. One is there by choice, the other by circumstance, and the distinction makes all the difference in the world. The choice before you is clear. You can continue approaching relationships superficially, wondering why they never seem to last, or you can do the real work of becoming a man who creates a home for a woman's soul. The first path leads to repeated frustration. The second leads to the kind of love most men only dream about. Which will it be? Let me tell you something most men will never understand. There's a world of difference between hearing a woman and actually listening to her. Hearing is passive. It's sound waves hitting your eardrums. Listening is active. It's decoding. Meaning behind those words, the emotions, the meaning behind those words, the emotions beneath the surface, the unspoken messages in her tone and body language. This distinction might seem subtle, but it's everything, because when a woman says, "You never listen to me," what she really means is, "You don't understand me." And that feeling of being fundamentally misunderstood is what kills relationships slowly, one unacknowledged emotion at a time. Think about how often this plays out in relationships. She comes to you upset about something that seems trivial, maybe a comment her coworker made or how her mother spoke to her that day. The average man hears the surface complaint and either tries to fix it, just ignore her, or dismisses it. You're overreacting. Meanwhile, what she's actually communicating is far deeper. She's telling you about her need for validation, her fear of not being good enough, her exhaustion from constantly having to defend herself. When you miss that, you're not just missing a conversation, you're missing an opportunity to connect with her at the soul level. This is why women often say they want to feel heard. It's not about agreeing with everything she says. It's about demonstrating that her inner world matters to you. When you truly listen, you're communicating three vital messages. One, your experiences are real and valid. Two, I care about how you feel. And three, you're not alone in this. That's emotional oxygen for a woman. Without it, the relationship suffocates slowly, no matter how many material comforts you provide. Now let's talk about how most men get this wrong. The typical approach is what psychologists call problem-solving listen. She shares a feeling. You immediately jump to solutions. This comes from a good place, you want to help, but it completely bypasses the emotional connection she's seeking. Imagine you're drowning and someone throws you a manual on swimming techniques instead of reaching out their hand. That's what problem-solving listening feels like to women. What she needs first is emotional resonance, the sense that you're with her in the experience before you try to pull her out of it. The art of deep listening requires developing what psychologists call mentalization, the ability to understand that another person's mind works differently than yours. Her concerns aren't less valid because they wouldn't bother you. Her reactions aren't unreasonable because you would react differently. This is where so many men fail. They judge her emotions through the lens of how they would feel, rather than striving to understand how she feels. The breakthrough happens when you realize that validating her emotions doesn't mean agreeing with them. It simply means acknowledging their existence and importance to her. Here's a practical example. When she's upset after a long day, the untrained response is, just relax, it's not a big deal. The transformative response is, tell me what's bothering you, I can see it's really weighing on you. The first approach dismisses, the second invites connection. The first leaves her feeling alone, the second makes her feel supported. This isn't about being a therapist, it's about being a partner who cares enough to engage with her inner world. The benefits of mastering this skill extend far beyond avoiding arguments. When a woman feels deeply understood, several profound shifts occur. Her trust in you grows exponentially. Her resentment diminishes. Her affection deepens. She becomes more open to your perspective because she knows hers is valued. It creates a virtuous cycle where emotional intimacy fuels every other aspect of the relationship. But here's the hard truth. This level of listening requires ego suspension. You have to be willing to set aside your own perspective temporarily to fully enter hers. You have to resist the urge to defend, explain, or fix long enough to simply be present with her experience. This is incredibly difficult for most men because we're trained to be problem solvers, not witnesses. Yet it's exactly this capacity to witness without immediately acting that creates the safety women crave. The most powerful part, when you learn to listen this way, you gain insights into her psyche that most men never access. You start anticipating her needs before she voices them. You recognize patterns in her emotions that help you support her better. You become not just her partner, but her sanctuary, the one person who truly gets her. And that kind of connection is irresistible. So I'll leave you with this challenge. The next time she speaks to you about something emotional, practice active listening. Put down your phone, make eye contact, ask follow-up questions. Reflect back what you hear. Resist the urge to solve, just be present. You'll be amazed at how differently she responds to you. Because when a woman feels truly heard, she doesn't just love you, she feels loved by you. And that makes all the difference. Consider this carefully. When a woman shows you her vulnerability, she isn't just sharing feelings, she's handing you a sacred trust. This moment is a test, though she'd never call it that. Pass this test, and you forge an unbreakable bond. Fail it, and you inflict a wound that may never fully heal. This is the crucible where real intimacy is forged or shattered, and most men walk into it blindly, armed with nothing but cliches and defensiveness. Let's dissect why vulnerability terrifies so many men. When she reveals insecurity about her body, her worth, her fears, it holds up a mirror to your own unexamined fragility. Your discomfort isn't about her pain, it's about your inability to tolerate emotional complexity without rushing to fix it. Here's the psychological truth. Vulnerability isn't a problem to be solved. It's a human experience to be witnessed. When you respond with solutions, just go to the gym, or dismissal, you're being ridiculous, what she hears is, your humanity inconveniences me. The damage compounds insidiously. Every time you pathologize her emotions, why are you so sensitive? You teach her to armor up around you. Every time you weaponize her confession during an argument. Well, you said yourself you're insecure. You prove her fears justified. Soon she learns, this isn't safe ground. And when a woman stops sharing her softness with you, the relationship is already dead. It just hasn't stopped breathing yet. You've become someone she manages, not someone she trusts. Contrast this with the transformative power of getting it right. When she whispers, I feel invisible since becoming a mother, and you respond, not with platitudes, but with fierce presence. Tell me where this hurts. Show me how to see you better. You do something revolutionary. You demonstrate that her shadows aren't repulsive to you. That's when she discovers, this man won't flinch from my darkness. That is the foundation of devotion you can't buy with any salary or status. This demands emotional literacy most weren't taught. It requires recognizing that her tears over a burnt dinner aren't about the meal. They're the overflow of 1,000 unspoken pressures. That her anxiety about aging isn't vanity, it's existential terror about losing cultural value. Your job isn't to debate the rationality of these feelings, but to acknowledge their realness to her. As Carl Rogers understood, The curious paradox is that when I accept myself as I am, then I can change. Your acceptance is the fertile soil where her transformation grows. The neurological impact is measurable. When you respond to vulnerability with empathy, you activate her brain's attachment system. Oxytocin floods her system, associating you with safety. But when you respond with criticism, cortisol fires, tagging you with threat. Do this repeatedly, and you literally rewire her nervous system to brace for attack in your presence. Is it any wonder she stops reaching for you? Here's where men stumble fatally. They mistake vulnerability for weakness. But the courage required for a woman to say, "I need you," in a culture that tells her neediness is repulsive, that's strength. Your ability to meet that courage without contempt, that's mastery. The philosopher Martin Buber captured it. All real living is meeting. When you truly meet her in these raw moments, you create an I-thou connection that transcends transactional relationships. Practical mastery looks like this. When she shares shame, amplify dignity. After all, you've survived. You're a warrior. When she voices fear, validate, then anchor. That is terrifying, but we'll face it together. When she expresses self-doubt, reflect unrecognized strength. The woman I see is capable of extraordinary things. Notice. No fixing, no minimizing, just profound witnessing. The reward, you become her sanctuary. Not the therapist chair cliche, but the oak tree that doesn't tremble when her storms hit. And in that safety, something miraculous happens. She heals. She grows. She becomes more herself. And the woman who blossoms in the ecosystem you've nourished, she'll defend that bond with ferocity because you gave her the rarest gift in this fragmented world, unconditional presence with her imperfect humanity. So I challenge you. The next time she hands you her fragile truth, will you fumble it with solutions, or will you hold it like sacred art, knowing this moment is the anvil upon which forever is forged? Choose wisely. Her soul is keeping score. Let's confront a dangerous myth head-on. The idea that a man's primary value lies in what he provides. Paychecks, stability, material security. These things matter, but they are shockingly insufficient glue for a lasting bond. Because when life unleashes its inevitable chaos, when she faces betrayal, loss, failure, or existential dread, no bank balance can shield her soul. What she desperately needs in those crucible moments isn't a provider, it's a fortress. A man who stands unshaken as her emotional citadel when the ground beneath her crumbles. This distinction separates temporary arrangements from lifelong devotions. Understand this deeply. Provision addresses external conditions. A fortress protects internal reality. The provider says, "I'll handle the bills." The fortress says, "I'll hold you while you grieve." The provider solves logistical problems. The fortress guards her spirit against annihilation. One keeps the lights on, the other keeps her soul alight in the darkness. And when catastrophe strikes, a parent dies, a dream collapses, an illness terrifies, she discovers instantly which man you are. Does she find stoic resolve beside her? Or does she find you paralyzed by your own discomfort with her pain? That moment reveals everything. This isn't abstract. Neurologically, when a woman experiences trauma or profound stress, her amygdala screams for safety. If she turns to you and finds emotional absence, dismissal, stop overreacting, or worse, you amplify her biological panic. Her nervous system logs, alone, unsafe. But if she finds calm containment, your steady gaze, your grounded presence, your unflinching "I'm here," you become her prefrontal cortex. You help regulate her terror. You signal, "This storm won't drown you. I am your anchor." That biological safekeeping is irreplaceable. Most men fail here not from malice, but from profound misunderstanding. They confuse being a rock with being emotionless. But true fortress energy isn't stoic detachment. It's strength in service of connection. It's the father who just pay for therapy after his daughter's assault, but sits in the parking lot for hours radiating unwavering solidarity. It's the husband who doesn't just buy flowers when his wife miscarries, but learns how to hold space for her labyrinthine grief. This requires emotional labor providers avoid, bearing witness to agony you cannot fix, offering no platitudes, just profound, wordless solidarity. Critically, being a fortress demands you master your own chaos first. You cannot stabilize her inner world if yours is a hurricane of repressed rage, chronic anxiety, or fragile ego. When she's drowning, she needs you to extend a pole, not jump in flailing alongside her. This means doing your inner work, resolving traumas, taming reactivity, building emotional endurance. A fortress isn't built overnight. It's forged through relentless by less self-confrontation. Nietzsche grasped this. What does not kill me makes me stronger applies not to the suffering itself, but to the integration of suffering. The man who integrates his pain becomes unbreakable and thus capable of shielding others. Here's the transformative truth. When you become her fortress, you unlock her fiercest loyalty because you've given her something no competitor can replicate. The bone-deep certainty that in her most shattered state, you will not recoil, you will not abandon, you will not minimize, you will stand guard at the gates of her dignity. And that experience rewrites her relationship to vulnerability itself. She learns, with this man, I can fall apart and still be held. That security frees her to become more courageous, more resilient, more alive, because she knows there's sanctuary waiting when she falters. Contrast this with the provider model. A woman can replace income. She can hire help. She can build her own career. But a man who reliably transforms her terror into safety, that's alchemy. That's rare. That's why she stays. Not because she needs him, but because she chooses him. Again and again, through every trial, because he's proven when the world turns hostile, he becomes her sanctuary, but her solution, her sacred ground. So ask yourself ruthlessly, when she's truly broken, not inconvenienced, but soul shattered, what does she encounter in you? Panic? Helplessness? The urge to flee her discomfort? Or immovable presence? Your answer determines whether you're a convenience or a cornerstone. Build yourself into that fortress, brick by brick, through your own self-mass, and you won't need to fear her leaving. You'll be the harbor she sails home to, no matter how violent the storm.